we're asked to find the exact value. And so we could say that we don't know what it is, but we know it's going to be equal to y. And now this is an equation that we can manipulate into something a little bit more familiar, right? Because this is inverse cosine. So if I take cosine of both sides of the equation, then cosine of inverse cosine, those two things cancel each other out. That leaves us with square root of 3 over 2. We get cosine y on this side. And now this is probably a question you're familiar with, something you've seen before. We're asked to find out the angle so that the cosine ratio equals square root of 3 over 2. Okay, if you're ever looking at a trig thing and you're questioning what it all represents, remember whatever's inside the parentheses next to the trig name, like cosine, that's the angle. Okay, so we're supposed to find the angle that gives us a square root of 3 over 2 ratio for cosine. So the way I teach my students is by using the special triangles method. For cosine to be positive, there's only two places where that can happen. Cosine can be positive here, where they're all positive. And all students take calculus. Cosine can be positive down here. But we're only going to consider the top right quadrant in it. This is meant to be a quick video. But you could do a little Google search to find out why we don't consider the other quadrant. And it has to do with the fact that arc cosine, arc sine, these all have to be defined on a restricted domain of their inverse functions of sine and of cosine. Otherwise, it wouldn't be 1-to-1 and there wouldn't be a proper inverse. Okay, so here's our triangle, our reference triangle. We draw these in the unit circle when we're using the special triangles method. And y is the angle that we're trying to solve for. Okay, the reference angle always goes right here near the origin. And so if it's a cosine ratio, that means we're supposed to take the adjacent of the angle, not the opposite, but the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse. And the adjacent divided by the hypotenuse is supposed to equal square root of 3 over 2. So the only way for that to happen is if this is 30 degrees, because this is a right angle, this would be 60. And with our special triangles, we memorize that when we draw them in the unit circle, square root of 3 over 2 is always across from 60. Okay, now we've got a cosine ratio set up. So now we know what y is. Y is 30 degrees, or in radians. Remember, you could divide by 180 and stick a pi on there. So that would be 3 out of 18, which is pi, well, that's 1 out of 6, right? So pi over 6.